Welcome to the second Peace Drops for the Great Green Wall Meditation and Reflection. My name is John Dirito. I'm based at the Brahma Kumaris Meditation Center in Soweto, Johannesburg. Peace Drops for the Great Green Wall was launched on the World Desertification and Drought Day on 17th June 2022. And it is a project of the Brahma Kumaris Environment Initiative inspired by the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. The aim of Peace Drops is to contribute a value-based and spiritual perspective towards the Great Green Wall Initiative that is restoring livelihoods across the Sahel. So the Great Green Wall has been described as a mosaic of local projects animated by a shared idea. And this shared idea is a prosperous future for the Sahel, where each individual has realized their value, has the opportunity to live by those values, and is living comfortably and in harmony with others and the environment. And to get there, Peace Drops for the Great Green Wall aims to help all of us in the Sahel and even beyond to experience greater well-being through this realization of the inner values that we have, and sometimes we don't use them, and therefore we end up maybe making decisions that do not help us a lot. So realizing our inner values that are going to lead us to a better state of well-being, better personal resilience, better communication and dealing with life in general. And regarding this, today we focus on 3 values. These are respect, responsibility, and resilience. And we have 3 speakers who will lead us through reflections and meditations on each of these values. So once again, welcome to Peace Drops. Feel the drops of peace all over you and over the whole of the Sahel as we carry on with our program today. Once again, welcome.
Hello, I'm Diane Tillman, a meditator and the co-creator of Living Values Education. I'm a person who cares passionately about our planet and helping create a better world for all. I am so pleased to learn of the African initiative, the Great Green Wall, which is being done with the United Nations and with the UN specialized agencies. I can only imagine the beauty that this Great Green Wall will have as it stretches from one coast of Africa to the other in the Sahel region, 8,000 kilometers across 11 countries. Wow. The richness it will bring in terms of the flourishing of vegetation, biodiversity, the rehabilitation of soils, and the much more abundant food supply for the people that live there is incredible. So I am very pleased also to learn of the Peace Drops initiative for the Great Green Wall that is being done by the Brahma Kumaris. The Brahma Kumaris' expertise is spiritual. And in this project, they will be offering knowledge and experiences of inner peace, of values, and how to increase personal and collective resiliency. They've asked me to speak a little bit about values because They profoundly affected my life 27 years ago in 1995 when they asked me to write 7 pages in a book. At the time, they were creating this book called Living Values, a guidebook, to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the United Nations. I was working as a school psychologist at the time, so they asked me to write these activities for children 8 to 14, values activities. I remember thinking to myself, write activities on humility for 8 to 14-year-olds? How am I supposed to do that? And so it took me a while to do it. But 27 years later, there are more than 20 books that have been produced. And within a year, those 7 pages became a starting point for an international values education initiative. The BKs were the seed of Living Values Education and sustained the project for 8 years. Currently, and since that time, it is now an independent NGO that's international. So it's in all continents around the world. And what we're finding, what we've always known, is that many people want a peaceful world. And many people care deeply about our planet. I'm delighted the Brahmakumaris are doing this Peace Drops initiative because I see their expertise as adding so much to the project. For it's very, very important that the project be doable and sustainable. Drops of peace are important. Drops of peace at one level is important for plants and for trees. Our vibrations as human beings affect vegetation. They affect matter, and we definitely affect each other. But the work of Dr. Emoto is very interesting. He studied the effects of positive thoughts and negative thoughts on water. Then he would freeze that water and examine it under a microscope. And the crystals that were created by positive thoughts were so beautiful, so organized, so much in harmony. The crystals, the water crystals created by negative thoughts were harmed. They were erratic. They didn't even begin to approach the beauty. So we as human beings have far more impact than we recognize often on matter. But also, peace drops are important in our mind. Peace drops allow us to be in peace. When we feel them in our mind, feel them in our heart, then feel them towards the plants. We sustain the plants in a different way. And I think these peace drops are important because it makes us enjoy working with nature more. But also it's a starting point for the development of peace as a value. Once I had a conversation with Daddy Janky, and I asked her, I said, Daddy, what is the difference between a virtue and a value? And she thought for a moment and she said, well, a virtue is a quality that you have, but it becomes a value when you can do it all of the time, and you do it with everyone. Fascinating. That definition allowed me to look at values differently. I, having been asked to write about values, something I'd never done before, began to really think about these things. And it took me a while to really realize many things, such as many people say, oh, I have this value and that value. But often in their life, they only use those values with their family and with their friends. And they don't use those values with everyone. The world would be very different if we used our values all the time. And so I would like you to explore these drops of peace and think about what would happen if those drops of peace deepened to the extent that we accepted it as a value. That would make working on the Great Green Wall much more sustainable. And it's important that this Great Green Wall be sustainable. Not only will it mitigate against climate change and the climate crisis we're in, the Great Green Wall will be an inspiration for everyone in the world. It's something that's so needed by our planet. This expanse, 3 times the size of the great coral reefs, will gobble up the carbon dioxide that are creating the global warming that is so perilous to the future of people. That is creating so much more drought, that is making deserts expand, that is creating chaos for animals, for people, for oceans, that's contributing immensely to drought, to famine. So this Great Green Wall is going to create well-being across this region. But it's also going to create well-being, much more well-being for our planet. And so how do we make those drops of peace become a value? What can we do to realize the importance of values? I always knew that values were a guiding force and that they were important in life. But I didn't realize the ramifications of values, not just for ourselves, but for everyone in the world. It took me years to realize it, but I think that you could realize it in a couple of minutes by reflecting on just a couple of things for a couple of minutes. So first, I'd like you to think of a positive person who made a difference in your life. Think of the values or qualities of that positive person that made a difference for you. Okay, great. Now imagine that everyone in the world had that quality. And that in the morning, tomorrow morning when you wake up, everyone in the world has that quality. Would the world instantly change? Yes. I've given this workshop hundreds of times in all regions of the globe. The answer is always yes. A question I don't usually ask. Imagine what it would be like if everyone in the world was violent tomorrow morning, or corrupt tomorrow morning, or hateful tomorrow morning, versus peaceful tomorrow, loving, respectful. It's really important to see the contrast. Sometimes when people are mean or corrupt, especially corrupt, they think it's not going to make a difference because it's only them. It makes a tremendous difference because it impacts other people all the time. And people have basic needs. And when those needs aren't met, then there's consequences in terms of hurt, anger, marginalization. So when we live our values, beauty happens and we can create. The reason I'm mentioning this is because when drops of peace, when they move into values, then when you're working on this great green wall, you will know how important it is. I mention it because I'm concerned. It's so easy to destroy things or think that this will never succeed or this doesn't matter, that it matters immensely. And if we bring those drops of peace into values, into our words, into our interactions, into our attitude, so that when people do things, we don't respond in anger, but we think. And we respond with compassion, with understanding. So it can be a beautiful thing. I remember once I went to refugee camps in Thailand with a Karen tribe. I went for 2 weeks every year for 5 years, along with 2 friends. And we had a wonderful time. I remember the first year it was very hard. The teachers would hardly talk to us. We'd gone a year before as well, because they'd asked us to go to, Rachel Flower had asked me to go to the camp with her because she had gone and the teachers said they weren't interested in learning about peace. But the distance person in charge wanted us to do it. And so he asked us to go to the camp. Rachel asked me to go to the camp. We went to the camp and the teachers again said they're not interested in peace. And so I remember we went to the head teacher and I asked him, why aren't your people interested in peace? And he said, because we're frightened. We're afraid that if we're peaceful, we'll all be killed. And I remember saying that when there's a situation, you need to do what you need to do to protect yourself. But there are forces that are working to try to make things better. And just a year or 2 before, I had met, actually several years before, I had met James Jonah, who was the Undersecretary General of the United Nations at the time. And he had a preventative diplomacy department. And so he'd hear about things that were happening. And he would call the countries involved and they'd create a solution before it became news. And I talked about another friend of mine through the UNA USA who was helping create the International Criminal Court of Justice. And so we talked about, hopefully politics will take care of politics in time. But when you get your land back or when you return to a place that's stable, will you have the capacity and will your people have the capacity to not recreate the conditions for war? Will you be able to have eliminated your greed and corruption? Will you be able to have the communication skills for peace, for caring, for respect, for cooperation? And he looked at me and said, I'll translate. And so we returned in a year. But what happened in a year is that it took a while. It took 2 weeks of training with the teachers because they were quite traumatized by their villages being attacked and having to run across the border. Many of their relatives having lost their lives. The children were traumatized. And there was no play in the camp. Just play with volleyball, only for young adults. The children didn't play at all. They'd fight and not play. And so we engaged the teachers in activities to explore their values, to come up with quality teaching methods so they could create an atmosphere in their bamboo classrooms. Bamboo floors, leaves on top for the roof, and how to create an atmosphere in which all children felt loved, valued, respected, understood, safe. They did it magnificently. When we came back in a year, the teachers told us that their students, 90 to 100% of them, no longer fought. They no longer got angry quickly. The children were engaged in healing activities. What made it effective is that the teachers were able to listen and to care and to understand, because we'd help them deal with their own pain. The children found a voice. They were taught conflict resolution. Within 2 years, all the teachers in the camp had been trained. All the children had been in the program for at least 1 year. There was no fighting in camp. Additionally, the camp leader had asked us to do an anti-corruption workshop for the camp leaders. And there was also no corruption in the camp. But what made my heart sing was that instead of violence, despair, and depression, there was caring. There was fun. Children were playing creatively, spontaneously, and there was zero fighting. So, adhering to the value at all levels, in the mind, in words, to have the social and emotional skills, to know that you're making a difference, to see what happens and what the larger ramifications are for the society, for the community, hence the world. So commit to your values and know what an incredible difference you're making. I am telling you this story because my concern is that because of the poverty and violence across this region, it would be so easy to continue. It will take work to make this Great Green Wall sustainable, because it also needs people that are truly committed to peace, who are willing to, instead of fighting, say, I know you're really upset about that. Okay, let's think about what we can do together to solve this. Totally different. That will allow it to become truly sustainable. That will make it possible for people not to destroy as an act of revenge. So I hope you don't mind me sharing my concerns. But this Great Green Wall is so important because it will inspire so many around the world as helping mitigate some of the effects of the climate change. So, climate change. Regarding that and values, I'm very concerned about the planet. I was very in touch by the Friday protests before the pandemic. So many children around the world trying to get the adults and the governments to hear them. I think Gutierrez was the Undersecretary General at the time, and he addressed the children and said, we listened to you. We heard your concerns. We are working to make a difference. It was very, very beautiful. And of course, the United Nations and the intergovernmental agencies and panels are doing a wonderful job. But what is stopping that from happening on a wide scale? Is it perhaps a tad of corruption, a tad of greed from governments, from people truly not understanding that they're part of the problem, and that there's so many things we can do to have a much smaller carbon footprint. And so to know that you're a part of that is very important, because the drops of peace and the commitment to the peace and the commitment to the environment add self-respect and hope. Hope is very important. So many children have lost hope because they fear for their future, because of the grave consequences of global warming. So knowing that, we started updating and rewriting the Living Values Education Activities books in 2018. And so in each one of the new books, Living Values Education Activities for children, 3 to 7, 8 to 14, young adults, book 1, there is a unit, and the unit is called Simplicity and Caring for the Earth and her Oceans. And so these units are to help children, young adults, and even us older adults understand what's truly happening. The scientific understanding for young adults, for little kids, stories and becoming a friend to the earth. Other stories for 8 to 14-year-olds. A look at systems thinking and how respect for the planet can affect everything. And within the stories and the activities, there is embedded not just knowledge and becoming a friend of the earth and enjoying nature and learning how to not believe the advertisers when they say that you need this. But there's also many, many, many things that they can think about, that they can do to make a difference. So many things. And it's important to have hope. When we have hope, when we have enthusiasm, we can make a difference. So these values units of Living Values Education Activities for the different age groups, this unit of Simplicity and Caring for the Earth and her Oceans is available free of charge on the livingvalues.net website. There's also a unit on peace if you want to explore that more. And in the Caring for the Earth and the Oceans, there is also encouragement to look at the wisdom of the indigenous cultures, perhaps your own, perhaps others, but the natural respect that they had for nature was so beautiful. And so I congratulate you all for the Great Green Wall and for having the dedication to build it. And I'm delighted with the peace drops for the Great Green Wall initiative. And I know that these drops can go down into our hearts until they are a solid, firm value, where every time you're working with plants and with trees And maybe one of them is not doing well, or there is a bit of a problem, but that you'll be able to continue on and know that you're not just caring for a plant or a tree, but you're caring for your people with local food production. You're creating peace in communities and nations. You're allowing there to be more beauty in your world. You're restoring the planet. You're giving hope to the world. And by opening your hearts in this way, everything in life will begin to bloom in a different way. Each one of us can make a difference, and you are making a difference. All good wishes. Thank you.
Peace drops for the Great Green Wall. Respect. I prepare myself for my meditation, making sure that my body's comfortable and that I'll be undisturbed for the next little while. Alone with my thoughts, I can focus on the inner peace I need to generate thoughts of true self-respect and respect for the world. I focus on my breathing to allow my mind to settle into the stillness that lies behind the thinking. I'm a being of peace, and feeling that thought, my mind slows down, and when it stops for a brief moment, I feel that peace that is always there inside me. I am a being of peace, peace that can be shared. Within the feeling of peace is a contentment, a feeling of love and security, where I feel safe and benevolent, able to share good energy. I feel the lightness of my being when my mind is at peace. Feelings of contentment and benevolence allow me to recognize the beauty of each one, of everything. I'm a being of respect that can share respect to anyone and everyone. Knowing who I am, knowing how safe I am and how strong I am inside. I don't feel threatened by anyone, and I'm able to see beyond. See beyond to the peace and respect that lies within the heart of each one. To see each person as a child of the Supreme, the one that always stays in a state of self-respect and peace. I am able to rise above the things that trigger dislike, disharmony, and join in a space of loving acceptance and appreciation. In a space and energy and vibration of peaceful acceptance. I respect without judgment. I appreciate. And together with the source of all goodness and power, I shine with my true light and shower and share drops of peace filled with respect. Respect for humanity, respect for the elements of matter, the environment, the planet. And I endeavour to bring this attitude of respect into my day-to-day life, taking moments here and there to connect and to shower drops of peace and the vibration of respect for all.
Par là. On reprend une autre.
Merci beaucoup. Bien, donc vous supposez que le camp, c'est-à-dire où vous avez installé les tentes, c'est ça.
So imagine that the camp is here in the corner.
Et tout ça, nous devons reboiser.
And this is the area we're going to reforest.
Et tout ça, ça fait 288 hectares.
So that makes 288 hectares.
Divisé en 4 blocs.
Divided into 4 parts.
Et chaque bloc se différencie par l'orientation des layons. Ce qui signifie que dans l'évolution, quand vous voyez que les layons changent de sens, vous avez fini un bloc. L'objectif, c'est un bloc par jour. Donc, ce qui va faire 72 hectares par jour. Maintenant, voilà comment est-ce que dans la pratique, les Chutai travaillent. Vous allez, après avoir commencé, vous-même trouver une méthode qui vous sied, mais d'une manière générale, voici comment les Chutai travaillent. Il y a ceux qui creusent. Il y a ceux qui ramassent les plants. Il y a ceux qui déposent les plants auprès des trous. Et puis il y a ceux qui plantent. Donc voici ce qui peut arriver. Le Chutai a une équipe qui ne sait pas ramasser les plants. Et ceux qui doivent planter n'ont plus de travail. Parce que justement, quand il n'y a pas de plants, on ne peut pas planter. Et c'est là, moi, j'ai dit à ceux qui sont chargés de planter, si vous n'avez pas de travail, mais allez chercher les plants. Donc, lorsqu'on a une mission et qu'on voit que dans les autres groupes, ça ne marche pas bien, on va les aider. Maintenant, ceux qui creusent les trous, ils creusent les trous tout au long du layon, à des distances plus ou moins régulières de 10 pas. Voilà, comme ça. Et à partir d'ici, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Et là encore, je vais faire. Pour certaines personnes, ça sera 8 pas. Donc ceux qui doivent creuser doivent savoir que voici à peu près les gaines ont à peu près cette longueur.
C'est standardisé.
Salam alaikum Bolomi, de me tudo Jim Brown.
Buenos días, me llamo Luis Sebastián y vengo desde Luxemburgo. はい、日本の埼玉県から来ました渡辺雄一郎と言います。よろしくお願いいたします。
I work for non-governmental organization.
Je fais première année biochimie à l'université de Douala.
In my everyday life, I'm a chartered accountant. Et je travaille dans une agence gouvernementale en tant qu'assistante de direction de communication.
Je suis étudiante géomètre topographe.
Actuellement, je suis titulaire d'une licence en sciences agronomiques, spécialité sciences de production végétale. Je suis également en géographie, actuellement en 3e année de sciences géographiques et je compte me spécialiser en environnement.
Na co dzień studiuję prawo na Uniwersytecie Szczecińskim.
Je suis informaticien.
Sou missionária da Sukioma Hearty.
On fait le sous-solage de la parcelle, le sous-solage. Parce qu'on a beaucoup de parcelles à sous-soler, ce n'est pas une seule parcelle.
Et la plantation se déroule comme ceci. Avant la pluie, nous mettons ce qu'on appelle les sillons, le travail de sol. C'est pour permettre à l'eau qui tombe de pouvoir être emmagasinée. Et sur la ligne, les distances sont de 5 mètres entre les plants. Ce qui nous donne en moyenne par hectare 250 plants pour chaque hectare planté.
L'histoire de la Grande Resepct est partie d'une réunion politique en 2005 entre les présidents africains qui se sont regroupés en 2005 et qui avaient pensé qu'ils pouvaient faire une organisation des opérations de plantation. À l'époque, c'était pensé à des opérations de plantation de Dakar à Djibouti sur 7000 km.
Przyjechałem tutaj, bo pomyślałem sobie, że to będzie fajne doświadczenie, że poznam nowych ludzi, zwiedzę trochę Afryki, no i że mogę zrobić coś dobrego dla świata.
Pour moi, m'occuper de l'environnement et veiller à la reforestation de cette zone désertique, c'est de belles vacances parce qu'elles sont utiles dans le sens où je sais que l'activité que nous faisons aujourd'hui sera utile pour l'avenir.
Today, I will reflect on my responsibility for the Great Green Wall. I imagine I sit on a high mountain overlooking the whole Sahel region. I can see the semi-arid terrain with low-growing grass. I can see tall green trees, thorny shrubs, acacia, and baobab trees. It's simple and healthy part of the earth. And now, being a detached observer, I can see another scene. Now I can see the savanna merging into desert. What can I do to help? To find the answer, I step inside into my silent space. There is clarity. There are all answers and solutions. I can understand better my responsibility, and I can get power to fulfill it. Responsibility is simply doing my share. So, for a moment, let me reflect what my share in the Great Green Wall is. Deep inside, I am a peaceful being, a being of light, being with inner power. So now I connect with my inner peace. I stabilize myself in that original peace. I am peace. I understand that peace is the foundation of any success. So my responsibility is simply to contribute to peace across Africa, across the countries, the nations, races, cultures, faiths. How can I fulfill this responsibility? Can I do it? I can, if I connect with the one above any differences, above any divisions, with the one source for everyone, with the source of unlimited peace. So I do it with my one peaceful thought. I go above and I reach the land of peace. And in that peaceful space, I can feel there is the source of peace. So I connect and I feel myself with this unlimited, pure peace. And I become the instrument to send peace down below, to the earth, to everyone who is involved in the Great Green Wall project, to the nature. So everyone and everything become peaceful. And now I go back to the place where I stay, but with me I have the power of peace, and this power enables me to fulfill my responsibility. I am a peaceful being, and I co-create the world of peace. In this awareness, I can fulfill my responsibility, no matter where I am, no matter what I do. I become the source of peace, which helps others to fulfill their responsibility of creating and maintaining the great green wall, the great wonder in the world. Om Shanti.
It's taken years to get off the ground, but the Great Green Wall finally seems to be making progress. The goal is to plant an 8,000-kilometre-long mosaic of trees, grasslands, vegetation and plants across the entire width of Africa to fight desertification in the Sahel region and provide more food security. Hosting a meeting with Emmanuel Macron on the sidelines of COP, Prince Charles reiterated the project's aims.
The Great Green Wall Initiative offers a precious opportunity to restore land, forests and biodiversity while also addressing the social, economic and environmental impacts of land degradation.
The French president also called it a question of security.
These are very concrete projects that provide economic opportunities and jobs that allow us to counteract the terrible situation that create either sudden migrations, as is the case in the Lake Chad region, or situations of terrorism, as is the case in the Sahel.
Emmanuel Macron says that nearly half of the $19 billion promised at the start of the year is now on its way. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos has pledged a further $1 billion from his foundation, and the European Union is also promising help.
We will contribute to different pillars of the Great Green Wall and thus supporting local communities while restoring the environment and reversing biodiversity loss.
The Great Green Wall could eventually restore 100 million hectares of land, absorb 250 million metric tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and create 10 million jobs. But so far, only 18% of the original targets have been met.
It is Africa's biggest natural solution to addressing climate change, disasters, desertification, droughts, irregular migration, and climate refugees. Also reversing conflicts, food insecurity, and reducing degradations of evident biodiversity loss and ecosystem degradation-related impacts.
Ce qui est très important à mes yeux dans cette initiative, c'est que nous développons des solutions qui sont basées sur la nature et des solutions qui sont basées sur la vitalité des écosystèmes africains, et en particulier des 11 pays consacrés.
The Great Green Wall is not only important for Africa, it is a global nature solution. The consequences are not limited to Africa, they are global. Therefore, the Great Green Wall is a priceless natural asset of immense value to the entire world.
Some years ago, there was a big drought around all the Sahel regions, and that killed all the cattle of my great families. So that means they have to move to one country to another one, from Nigeria to Nigeria, and then some of them in Cameroon and others in Chad. So I have my direct families that moving around all the Sahel regions because they are getting impacted by the drought. Not only my community get displaced, but they displaced from the culture that I have when I was really growing up as teenagers. The drought is something that we can fight. We have a solutions if we have adequate finance, technical supports, and the expertise of the communities who can work on the ground, on the soils, and then make it work. So the examples that I have from my communities, normally women do not have a land rights. So I work with the community chiefs, and then they agreed we get a land titling for a group of the women. And what they do with it now, they try to restore the soils and ecosystem around a national park. So they are replanting indigenous trees that used to be in the place and who are not there. And in the middle of those indigenous trees, they are replanting an agroecology that can help them to feed the food insecurity and have the ecosystem restored. So it is positive. It can work, but it has to happen like right now. This is a small examples. Given land rights, given the capacity, we can respond to the drought. So let us move from the talks to the concrete implementation on the ground by the communities and with the communities.
I sit down quietly and relax my body as everything around me becomes still. I breathe in the cool fresh air and breathe out slowly. I look above in the sky and I'm amazed of the pure white clouds taking different shapes. It is almost hard to believe that a few hours ago it was dark all over and pouring rain. It made me realize that everything comes and goes. Nothing stays forever, not even dark times. So I learned to be patient and I learned to let go. Not to hold on anything that I cannot control. Grief, sadness, regret, the past, hard feelings. No matter how hard life can be, I now trust the light in me that can rejuvenate. Just like in nature, trees grow leaves again after fall. Birds always repeat their nests after storms. Never stay down. Life is ever growing. I can feel eternity. I can feel myself as an eternal being. I can feel that happiness and peace is truly a part of me. So I take every chance to feel better, to feel the joy and happiness in every simple things. Wind blowing on my face, sunlight at the window early in the morning, birds chirping in the trees. I feel grateful and I'm worthy to witness these sceneries in this moment in time. I keep this awareness as long as I can to feel the energy that has been created, and slowly I make my way down again, feeling the fresh air on my face.
I wish to thank all the speakers for the meditations and the reflections, and all of you for attending today's program. We have found that turning the mind within helps us to link with our inner resources, to access our inner values and resources, the resources of the inner self. And when we do this and realize what is there within, respecting the self becomes a natural thing, valuing the self. And that translates easily to having real respect and value for others, understand actually who they are deeply, and also valuing the environment, the space on which I create life, the space on which I express myself in the game of life. And when I also connect with the inner values and powers, then it becomes incumbent on me to feel that I can contribute something positive, something that can help us and myself lead to a better state of being. So then that responsibility for me to be a positive actor, to be one who contributes positively to society in all different ways, becomes a reality, however small that contribution could be, however large it might be. And also, when I realize the inner self, the values of the inner self, the understanding of the inner self, I'm able to create a clear distinction between what I can change, what I can control, what is within my reach, and circumstances that may be out of my reach, things that I can control. And therefore, I'm able to deal with the outer challenges in a good manner where I'm well resourced from within. That connection with the inner self is still there when I'm facing these challenges, and therefore I'm able to recover easily from any challenges that come about, and resilience then becomes an integral part of my life when I have to deal with difficult situations. So once again, thank you very much for attending today's program, and wish you keep the reflections and meditations you have done today alive and in use until the next time we meet. And every time you see water, please imbue it with peace from within and keep spreading drops of peace all over the Sahel, all over the world. We need lots of that. Thank you very much. Bye.